Morning, students. Today we will be starting our new chapter, that is chapter 7, and that chapter is directing. Now, students, before this, we have already studied planning, organizing, and staffing function of management. After staffing, that means the positions they are filled by competent personnel in the organization. This function immediately comes into existence. There is need for this function. Why? Because unless and until we see that the people who have been appointed in the organization and they have been placed at different positions, unless and until they are directed, that means they are given direction, the work cannot start in the organization. And that is why direction is always referred to as management in action. Because before this function, before directing function, planning, organizing, and staffing function, plans for everything in the organization, plans for what is to be done, how it is to be done, arranges for the resources. And after all the arrangements of the resources, maybe material resources or physical resources, and also human resources has been done, the directing function gives direction to those people or persons who have been appointed in the organization to work according to the goals. So unless and until they are provided that direction, the work will not start in the organization and the organization will not be able to achieve its objective. That is why it is called management in action. It is at this stage that the management comes into action, and by different elements, through different elements of direction, it may be through supervision, or it may be through motivation, it may be through guidance, it may be through counseling, it may be through instructing, it may be through leading, it may be through communication, that the management acts and sees that the work starts in the organization. That is why it is also called executive function of management. The directing function executes action in the organization, and that is why it is also called the executive function. It involves telling people what is to be done in the organization to achieve the organizational goals, and also see that those goals they are achieved properly. That is why it says what is to be done and how it is to be done, that is told to the people who are placed at different positions in the organization, so that they are able to perform and do the work as per the needs of the organization towards achievement of organizational goal. So it is telling people what to do and how to do towards achievement of organizational goals effectively and efficiently. It is also said to be the process. Let us take a simple definition of directing for this. So in a layman's language, we have understood that direction is basically considered to be the management in action, or it is said to be the executive function of management. Sometimes it is also said to be heart of management. So you can understand, if the management has to perform various functions and the heart, that is directing function, if it is not performed properly, you can understand the other functions work will also be wasted. That is why in the human organs, if the heart is weak, you can very well understand the other organs will also fail. It will not work properly. Similarly, if the directing function is weak or it is not done properly in the organization, we see that it will not be easy, or it will be impossible to achieve the organizational goals effectively and efficiently, for which the management functions in any organization. That is why direction is always said to be indispensable function, indispensable. Without it, the organization will not be able to work effectively and efficiently. So let us define: it is a process of instructing or guiding or motivating or leading people in the organization towards the achievement of organizational goals effectively and efficiently. It is a process. Always direction is a process. We will be learning about this process, and this process includes instruction, it may include guidance. There may be different ways through which the directing function may be performed in the organization. Sometimes through instruction, sometimes through supervision, that is also called guidance, sometimes through motivation, sometimes through leadership, sometimes through communication. The people in the organization, they are made to work towards the achievement of organizational goals. So it is called the heart of management function. After this, we'll be learning about the features of directing. From the very definition of directing, the features will also be very clear to you. The first feature says direction initiate action. It initiates action because before this, the other functions, when we talk about planning or organizing or staffing, it lays down the foundation, lays down foundation. It is only through the direction function that the work begins in the organization, and that is why it is said to be the executive function. The work executes and the action is initiated in the organization, started in the organization. That is why the first feature is direction initiates action. It takes, second feature says, it takes place at every level of the management. Regardless, wherever, we may understand that wherever the superior subordinate relationship exists in the organization, the direction function takes place. And this superior subordinate relationship may exist at any level, whether it is top level or it is middle level or it is lower level management. We see that the direction function takes place in the organization. Third, it is a continuous process. We see that as long as the targets are set, the work is to be performed to achieve that target in the organization. The direction function has to go on in the organization. So it is not a one-time activity, it is always a continuous process which has to be taken up in the organization for achievement of the organizational goals. It flows from top to bottom. Always the flow of direction is downwards. The arrow is pointed towards down. It arises at the topmost position in the organization, and then it starts to flow in downwards direction, and it flows to the lowest levels in the organization up to the stage where the superior subordinate relationship exists. So we see that these are the four features of directing. The next is the importance of directing. The first importance is it initiates action. Once the action takes place in the organization, that means the work begins. Action means work begins. We see that the work starts and is performed through the directing function in the organization in such a way that it helps in achievement of the organizational goal, and for which the management may sometimes use the element of supervision or sometimes it may adopt, you may say, motivation technique, or sometimes it may use supervision or guidance, or sometimes through effective communication it tries to initiate the work in the organization so that the work is performed as per the desired objectives. So we see that work begins to achieve organizational goals. So this is the importance. It is only through this function that through the various elements of directing that the goal is achieved. It integrates employees' efforts. We all know that the employees, they work at different places and they are positioned at different, you may say, positions in the organization or ranks in the organization. Now, why all of them are working in the organization? All of them are working so that they can achieve the organizational goals collectively. So to see that their efforts are combined in the right direction, there is need to give proper direction. Through proper direction, through supervision, through motivation, through leadership, through communication, the efforts which they make, that is integrated, that is coordinated, so that there is proper synchronization between the activities which is performed in the organization to achieve the organizational goals effectively and efficiently. Had there been no direction, we could see that it would have been difficult to establish coordination amongst all the activities which is being carried out in the organization at different places by different people carrying out different natures of work. So it is because of this direction function that we see that their efforts, combined efforts, give effective results. We can take so many examples. We see that if we talk about any of the garment shop, we see that there are different you may say, divisions or different works which is carried out by different people in the organization. Once you enter any shop, you will see there will be a welcome department who will be welcoming. Then once you go and enter the shop, there will be people around who will be showing you the things which is available in the shop. Then after you have purchased those things, you will be making payments. So at the payment counter, there will be another set of people who will be working. Then to see off, there will be another set of people. So what we see is that all of them, they are working to see that effective sales takes place. If any of the group of people working in a particular you may say department doesn't work properly, we see that their efforts will go futile. That is why there is always a need to see that there is proper integration of the efforts which takes place, and coordinated efforts lead to achievement of the organizational goals. It is third point, it is also a means of motivation. It is through the direction function, it is through the you may say motivation process, which may involve both financial or non-financial incentives to the people working in the organization, that the efforts that is put in the best possible manner by the people working towards the achievement of the organizational goals. So we see that one of the element of directing function is motivation. It is through the motivation that the action is directed towards the goal. That is why it is always considered to be effective. It also facilitates in implementing changes. Whenever the changes they are introduced in the organization, it is the general nature of the employees working that they resist to changes. But if effective direction is used in the form of proper leadership or in the form of proper motivation given to the people, then resistance which is observed to accept those changes can be replaced to willing cooperation from the people, and that will always lead to the achievement of the organization goal. For example, if you see that the organization has been working with the you may say typewriters, and the computers emerges, those people who are working in on the typewriters may feel that their job will go away, and that is why they may resist to those changes. But if they are motivated and they are explained about the use of those computers in the proper manner, they will readily be able to adapt to those changes and accept those changes willingly, which will be beneficial not only for them but also for the organization. So in this way we see that effective motivation always helps the organization towards achievement of the goals by accepting the changes which is needed as per the time. So the last point is it creates balance in the organization by effective, you may say by harmonizing individual and organizational objectives. Sometimes we see that the individuals working in the organization feel that if they work they should get the maximum benefit in the form of more salary, in the form of more share in the profit, and the organization feels that the employees should work hard more and more, and they should contribute more towards the achievement of the organizational goals and increase the profit margin of the organization. So it is through this directing function that a manager can make the individuals understand that by realizing the organizational goals, how they can also achieve the individual goals. So it helps in bringing balance by harmonizing and reducing the, you may say, conflict which may arise between individuals and organizational goals in the organization. So in this ways we see that directing function is very, very important. So it is indispensable, we have learned. Now we move on to the next topic, and that is principles of directing. There are basically 8 principles of directing. If it is properly followed in the organization, we see that the direction function is effective. Always, once the direction is given in the organization, these principles have to be kept in mind to make the direction function fruitful, effective, and that will always help in achievement of organizational goals effectively and efficiently. So what are these 8 functions? Let us understand one by one. First is principle of maximum individual contribution. Always, whenever a manager is directing or giving direction to his subordinates in the organization, he should keep one thing in mind, that while he is giving direction, to see that his subordinates, they are able to give their maximum contribution to the organization. So the principle of maximum individual contribution says that direction should be given in such a manner that the manager is able to realize the maximum potential of his subordinates working under him, and if all the managers, they are competent enough to do that through the various elements, that may be supervision, through leadership, through proper communication, through proper motivation, we see that the manager is able to take out the maximum out of his subordinates working under him, and that will lead to the best achievement of the organizational goals. So that should be kept in mind whenever the direction function is performed in the organization by the manager. Principle of harmony of objectives. So harmony of what objectives? Individual objectives and organizational objectives. We have earlier also understand that if there is harmony of objectives, individual and organizational objectives, there is balance in the organization. And that balance can be maintained if the manager certainly gives the direction function or implements the direction function in a way that he is in a position to make the individuals understand that in realization of organizational objectives lies the fulfillment of individual objectives of any individual working in the organization. And for that, we see that the manager can use different styles of leadership, or you may say adopt different leadership styles to influence the behavior of the individuals to see that the individual and the organizational goals do not contradict, but they are always in cooperation with each other, and that will always help in the achievement of organizational goals. Principle of unity of command. Whenever the direction function is performed in the organization, the unity of command principle says that command should come from only one and one boss, or one and one superior. If at a time there are more than one superiors giving orders or commanding the subordinates working under them, then it will be difficult for the subordinates to follow the orders and listen to the instructions or abide by the instructions of his superiors. So unity of command should be followed so that the command can be properly obeyed, it can be followed in the organization. If this principle is not kept in mind while directing, we see that whatever instructions or orders they are given by the superior to the subordinates, it would be difficult to follow in the organization, because there will be confusion, there will be misunderstanding, so it has to be avoided. Now, principle of appropriateness of direction techniques. So there may be different direction techniques which can be used. It may be in the form of motivation, it may be in the form of supervision, it may be in the form of leadership, it may be in the form of communication. Whatever way of motivation or whatever way of supervision is utilized, or styles of leadership is used, or communication, whether formal or informal, we have learned whatever is used in the organization by the manager, that should be used always keeping in mind the situation and the circumstances. Because if a manager is not able to understand the situation and circumstances, he won't be able to utilize proper direction techniques, because direction techniques are mainly utilized in order to influence the persons to work in the way as desired in the organization. Then only the goals will be achieved. So understanding the situation, studying the situation, analyzing the situation and the circumstances, the direction techniques have to be used, then only it is going to give effective results. So this principle has to be kept in mind. Then principle of managerial communication. The managers, in order to give directions, have to communicate, and that communication can be formal or informal. We have already learned about formal and informal, but still, whatever way of communication it may be, but communication should be clear. Whatever the manager tries to convey, communication means conveying the information, and that information which is being conveyed, or the idea or the message which is being conveyed, that is understood in the same manner by the receiver. That will only be possible if the communication is effective. So it should be free flow communication between superior and subordinate, so that whatever instructions, orders are given by the superior, that is understood by the subordinates in the same spirit. And if that is taken up in the same spirit, then only the work will be properly performed in the organization, otherwise it will not be done. So manager has to keep this in mind. Principle of use of informal organization. Along with formal, there is also need of informal organization, where we see that in case of informal organization, it is helpful sometimes, so that the organization is able to, you may say, come out of the official flow of information and authority, and work in such a manner that the smooth operation of or exercise of the work is carried out. So in sometimes this we see that informal existence of informal organization within the formal organization in the organizations is also helpful towards achievement of organizational goals, where we see that with the help of this informal existence of the organization, there is free flow of communication, and that free flow helps the organization to exchange so many things which gives satisfaction to the employees, and that motivates them to work in the desired manner. Principle of leadership. Effective leadership should be there by the manager. Manager has to be an effective leader whenever he is giving the direction, so that whatever direction he gives, it is followed by his subordinates, and they get influenced by their leader, and they act in the same way as desired by the leader. So that will always achieve the organizational goals. Principle of follow through. The last principle says that not only giving direction is enough, but also it has to be observed that whatever direction has been given, is it being properly followed or not. By receiving feedback in the organization, a manager can understand how far the direction techniques which has been adopted in the organization by the managers have given successful results. That means it has been implemented in the same manner as it has been directed, so that the more we see that there is adherence of the direction principles as given by the managers, the better are the chances that the organization will be able to achieve its goals effectively and efficiently. So these 8 principles, if it is kept in mind by the manager while directing, we see that the work is carried out smoothly in the organization, and the organization is able to achieve its goal, its purpose, its objective for which it is working. With this, the introduction part we have completed. Next, in our next topic, lecture, we will be talking about the elements of directing function. Till then, thank you all of you.